In the summer of 2012, a 16-year-old girl named Skylar Neese snuck out of her bedroom window late at night. She had done it before. It was a summer thing. Teenagers, warm nights, riding around with friends. The two girls waiting in the car outside were her best friends in the world. One of them had been her friend since she was 8 years old. Skylar Neese was never seen alive again. And here's the thing that made this case unlike almost anything investigators had ever seen before. In the weeks after she disappeared, those two best friends were everywhere, posting tributes online, handing out missing person flyers, calling Skylar's grieving parents every single day, because they knew exactly where she was. They put her there. Skylar Annette Neese was born on February 10, 1996. She grew up in Star City, a small suburb just outside Morgantown, West Virginia, a university town, quiet, tight-knit. By the time she was in high school, Skylar had a 4.0 GPA. She worked part-time at a Wendy's to help her family. She wanted to become a criminal defense attorney. Think about that. The girl who dreamed of defending the innocent, murdered by the two people she trusted most. She was the only child of Dave and Mary Neese. Dave worked at Walmart. Mary worked at a cardiac lab. They described Skylar as bold, bubbly, bright, a force of nature. At the center of her social life were two girls, Sheila Eddy and Rachel Schoaf. Sheila had been Skylar's best friend since they were both 8 years old. They met at a local children's program called The Shack and were basically inseparable ever since. When Sheila's mom remarried and moved to Morgantown, Sheila transferred to University High School, Skylar's school, and their friendship continued. Rachel came into the picture in their freshman year of high school. She'd gone to a private Catholic school before that. When she transferred to University High, she fell into the same circle. By their sophomore year, all three were a trio, always together, always seen around town from the outside. Three normal teenage girls, best friends, inseparable. But underneath the surface, something was starting to break apart, and only two of them knew why. In the weeks leading up to July 2012, Skylar's social media began telling a story. She posted things like, "Sick of being at home. Thanks, friends. Love hanging out with you all too." A day later, she wrote, "You doing stuff like that is why I can never completely trust you." Vague, teenage, the kind of posts we scroll past every day. But those posts were aimed at Sheila and Rachel, and detectives would later say those posts may have sealed Skylar's fate. Here's what we now know, and we only found out the full truth over 10 years later. Sheila Eddy and Rachel Schoaf had secretly started a romantic relationship. They were both terrified of anyone finding out, Rachel especially, coming from a deeply religious family, feared being expelled from her church and cut off from her parents. And they believed, whether rightly or wrongly, that Skylar knew, or suspected, and that she might tell someone. At a 2023 parole hearing, Rachel Schoaf finally said it out loud. She described her relationship with Sheila as intense and unhealthy. She said there was tension, hostility, and in their teenage minds, they didn't know how to handle the conflict, so they decided to end it. Not the friendship, not the secret. Skylar. What these two girls did next is one of the most chilling examples of premeditated murder involving teenagers that law enforcement in West Virginia had ever investigated. This wasn't a moment of rage. This wasn't impulsive. This was planned. Days before July 6th, Sheila and Rachel prepared what investigators later described, almost clinically, as a kit. In the trunk of Sheila's car, they packed cleaning rags, bleach, wet wipes, a shovel, and a fresh change of clothes for each of them. They wrapped knives in towels and tucked them under their arms. And then, at 12:30 in the morning, on July 5th, 2012, after Skylar finished her shift at Wendy's, they pulled up to her apartment complex. Surveillance cameras outside the building captured exactly what happened next. Skylar pushed a bench to her bedroom window. She climbed out. She walked to the car. She got in. Because these were her best friends, she had no reason not to. They drove 30 miles across the state line into Brave, Pennsylvania, to a wooded area all three of them had been to before, a place they used to go to hang out, smoke, relax. When they got out of the car and walked into the woods, Sheila and Rachel told Skylar they'd forgotten to bring a lighter. Skylar turned to go back to the car. She turned her back to them, and the two girls counted to 3. Skylar Neese was stabbed more than 50 times. She fought back. She managed to grab Rachel's knife and stab her above the ankle. Rachel later told investigators that's when she stopped, when she was injured. But Shelia didn't stop. She continued until, in Rachel's own words given in court, Skylar's neck stopped making weird sounds. Then they tried to bury her. They'd brought a shovel. But the ground in that part of Pennsylvania was too rocky, too hard to break through. So instead, they dragged Skylar's body to a secluded spot next to a large tree, covered her with branches, dirt, and leaves. Then they changed out of their bloody clothes, wiped themselves and the car down with wet wipes, and drove home, as if nothing had happened. Skylar Neese's parents discovered she was gone early the next morning. Her bedroom window was open, a bench sat beneath it. They called the police. And almost immediately, their daughter's two best friends were at their side. For 6 months, Shelia Eddy and Rachel Schoaf pulled off one of the most brazen cover-ups in recent true crime history. Shelia called Skylar's father, Dave Neese, every single day, asking for updates, helping with search parties, posting tributes on social media. Dave Neese later said he thought Shelia genuinely cared. On Twitter, Shelia was posting about her missing friend, tweeting things like, "I just want my best friend back," tweeting about grief, about hope. Meanwhile, investigators were quietly building a case. Police reviewed surveillance footage and identified Shelia's car picking up Skylar at 12:30 a.m. They interviewed Shelia. She admitted to the car ride, but said she dropped Skylar off near home before midnight. Rachel told essentially the same story. They smoked. They drove around. They dropped her off. But when detectives retraced the route separately with each girl, the directions didn't match. One said they turned left at a key intersection. The other said right. High-resolution cameras at a Sheetz gas station caught Shelia's car at midnight, heading toward Blacksville, not toward Skylar's home, away from it. They knew the girls were lying. They just couldn't prove it yet. Then, in December 2012, 6 months after the murder, Rachel Schoaf had a breakdown. Her mother called 911. In the background of that call, you can hear Rachel screaming. She was taken to a psychiatric hospital. She stayed 5 days. When she was released, she immediately asked to be taken to her lawyer's office. And there, Rachel Schoaf confessed everything. She told investigators every detail. She told them about the kit in the trunk. She told them about counting to 3. She told them about Skylar fighting back. And she told them exactly where to find Skylar's body. On January 16, 2013, 6 months and 10 days after she disappeared, the snow in Pennsylvania melted enough for investigators to search. They found Skylar Neese's remains beneath branches and leaves next to a large tree in Wayne Township, Pennsylvania. Her mother Mary later said the discovery was the worst day of her life, and also somehow the beginning of being able to breathe again. Blood found in Shelia Eddy's car tested positive for Skylar's DNA. That was the confirmation they needed. Rachel Schoaf had already confessed. She even agreed to wear a wire in an attempt to get Shelia to incriminate herself, but Shelia was too careful. In January 2014, with DNA evidence, surveillance footage, Rachel's testimony, and a classmate who'd overheard them discussing the murder in science class, Shelia Eddy was arrested. When asked why they killed Skylar, Rachel Schoaf told investigators the most chilling answer in the history of this case. She said, "We just didn't like her." Years later, at a parole hearing, she added what she says was the real reason: the secret relationship with Shelia, the fear, the belief that Skylar was going to tell people. Skylar's father, Dave, was in that hearing room when he finally heard the truth, over a decade after losing his daughter. Rachel Schoaf pleaded guilty to second-degree murder on May 1, 2013. She was sentenced to 30 years in prison with eligibility for parole after 10 years, a reduced sentence in exchange for her cooperation and confession. Shelia Eddy pleaded guilty to first-degree murder on January 24, 2014. She was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years. Both women are currently housed at the Lakin Correctional Center in West Virginia, and in a detail that still stuns people, they are in the same prison. In prison, Rachel Schoaf has earned her cosmetology license. She started a prayer group. She leads a choir and holiday plays. She's described as someone who has found peace. Shelia Eddy, by contrast, is described by former inmates as someone who runs a little colony inside the prison walls, charming, popular, manipulative, reportedly receiving stacks of fan mail for the girl who counted to 3. Rachel Schoaf has been denied parole twice, in 2023 and 2024. She waived her 2025 hearing. She is next eligible in June 2026. Sheila Eddy's first parole eligibility doesn't come until 2028. Skylar's father, Dave Neese, has spoken at every parole hearing. He called Rachel a rat and both girls cold-blooded killers who should never walk free again. He and Mary Neese have turned their grief into action. They run an outreach program called Skylar Talks, visiting schools and prisons to help others understand how one choice can cause pain that ripples out forever. They created Skylar's Promise, a commitment for young people to speak up when something is wrong. If you're watching this after Hulu's Friends Like These dropped on March 6, 2026, you're not alone. Millions of people just finished watching that docuseries and came here with the same question. What happened next? What's the full story? The Hulu docuseries is well made and brings new interviews to the case. But here's what it doesn't fully sit with. It doesn't sit with the fact that Skylar's parents spent 6 months not knowing. 6 months of Sheila calling Dave every day. 6 months of hope and fundraisers and prayer and search parties, while the girls who killed her watched it all unfold. It doesn't fully sit with the fact that the motive, the real motive, was hidden for over a decade. Dave Neese didn't find out the real reason his daughter was murdered until 2023, 11 years later, in a parole hearing room. And it doesn't sit with what Skylar's disappearance changed. West Virginia rewrote its Amber Alert laws after this case, because those 48-hour minimums meant Skylar wasn't even classified as missing in the way she should have been. She was 16 years old. She had a 4.0 GPA. She wanted to defend the innocent. She deserved better from the system that was supposed to protect her. Skylar Neese's case is often described in terms of what her killers did: the counting, the kit, the cover-up. But what I want you to leave here remembering is this: Skylar trusted two people completely, the way you only trust someone when you've known them since childhood, the way you only trust someone when you've grown up together, shared everything, believed the friendship was real. That trust wasn't weakness. It was the best thing about her. The case changed West Virginia law. It changed how families search for missing children. And it changed how investigators think about the people closest to a victim. Because sometimes the most dangerous place to be is right next to someone you've known your whole life. If this case meant something to you, subscribe. New documentary every week. And if you have a case you think deserves attention, drop it in the comments.